All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we're diving into a world of giant scorpions and B-movie mayhem.
Sounds exciting.
It is. We're talking about the 1957 cult classic, The Black Scorpion.
Oh, classic. I love that one.
We've got a whole stack of sources here, from reviews to behind-the-scenes trivia, and we're going to uncover what makes this film tick.
So are we talking like giant scorpion anatomy
Ah,
or more like how they made those awesome stop motion
a
effects?
little bit of both, actually. But before we get into all that, let's set the scene for our listeners. What's The Black Scorpion all about?
Well, imagine this. A peaceful Mexican village, bam, suddenly hit by a volcanic eruption.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
but here's the twist. This eruption doesn't just spew out lava and ash. It unleashes a horde of gigantic prehistoric scorpions.
Whoa, 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 hold on. Giant scorpions. Like, how giant are we talking?
I'm talking massive. Some of these bad boys are as big as houses, reaching a terrifying 30 feet in length.
30 feet. That's longer than a school bus.
And they're not just content with hanging around the volcano. They're on a rampage, headed straight for Mexico City.
Oh, man. Mexico City is about to have a really bad day. So who's going to stop these giant scorpions from turning the city into their own personal buffet?
Well, it's a real team effort. We've got geologists and entomologists trying to understand this prehistoric threat, the Mexican army trying to hold them back, and even a brave rancher who gets caught right in the middle of the action.
Sounds like a wild bunch. It's giving me some serious King Kong vibes.
You're picking up on something for sure.
And speaking of King Kong, didn't the special effects genius behind that film have a hand in The Black Scorpion?
You're right on the money. The one and only Willis O'Brien, the master of stop-motion animation, was the mastermind behind bringing those scorpions to life.
Now, for those who might not know, stop-motion animation is a painstaking process. It involves taking a model, moving it slightly, taking a picture, moving it again, and repeating that thousands of times to create the illusion of movement.
It was groundbreaking back then, and O'Brien was a true artist. He knew how to give those creatures weight and personality, making them feel like real threats.
And in The Black Scorpion, that realism is really apparent. Like that scene where a scorpion attacks a passenger train, it's terrifying.
Oh yeah, that scene. You can almost feel the metal twisting under the scorpion's might. It's amazing how they achieved those visuals on what was, let's be honest, a pretty tight budget.
Yeah, about that budget. I've heard stories about the film's financial constraints, even something about a black hole scorpion.
Ah, yes. The infamous black hole scorpion. Well, during the film's climax, a giant scorpion is supposed to enter Mexico City, right?
Right. Big dramatic entrance.
Exactly. But they ran out of money to complete the special effects for that scene.
No way. So what did they do?
They had to improvise. So what you see in the film is basically a black silhouette of the scorpion against the night sky.
Wow, talk about working around limitations. It seems they had to get creative in more ways than one. I also heard they reused props and even sound effects from other monster movies.
True, they borrowed props from King Kong. And get this, they used the same scorpion sound effects from the giant ant movie, Them.
Wait, really? So those iconic ant chirps in them are the same sounds used for the scorpions in the Black Scorpion?
That's right. It's a clever way to save money and also kind of fun little nod to other monster movies.
It shows how these films, even though they're different, are all connected in a way, influencing and building upon each other.
Exactly. It's like a cinematic conversation happening across different films.
Yeah.
And speaking of clever resourcefulness, in that train attack scene, if you look really closely at the coal tender, you can see the inscription Lionel Lines.
Wait, as in Lionel model trains, are you saying they use a model train set for that scene?
It certainly seems that way. It's a tiny detail, but it shows just how much they were trying to do with limited resources. And those little quirks often give B-movies their unique charm.
Okay, so we've got resourceful filmmaking, groundbreaking stop motion, and maybe a few too many close-ups of a drooling scorpion puppet. But what did the critics think back in 1957? Was The Black Scorpion a hit or a miss?
It's a bit of a mixed bag, actually. Variety praised the special effects, but some critics weren't impressed with the plot, the acting, and especially that forced romantic subplot. You know, the one between the American geologist Hank Scott and the rancher Teresa Alvarez.
Ah, yes. The classic monster movie romantic subplot. Was it particularly bad in The Black Scorpion?
Let's just say it wasn't exactly a highlight. And then there's Juanito, the little boy who befriends Hank. Let's just say he's not the most popular character among viewers.
Oof, yeah, I've seen reviews calling him, well, annoying.
Yeah, that's one way to put it. But honestly, those elements, those familiar tropes, were all part of the monster movie formula back in the 1950s.
Yeah, giant arthropods, stop-motion animation, a dash of romance, a pinch of Cold War paranoia. It was a recipe for success.
Exactly. And despite the criticisms, the Black Scorpion fits right in with those classic monster movies.
There's something about it that elevates it beyond just another monster flick. Maybe it's that sincerity you mentioned earlier.
It could be. It's got this energy, this genuine feel that shines through.
And speaking of things that shine through, there's one detail that I just have to bring up. It involves scorpions and obsidian.
Ah, you're talking about the whole premise of the film, right? The scorpions surviving for millions of years trapped in obsidian.
Yes, it looks cool, but scientifically speaking, it's a bit of a stretch.
It is. I mean, scorpions stuck in obsidian for millions of years wouldn't be in great shape.
But hey, it's a monster movie. We can suspend our disbelief for a while, right?
Exactly. It's all part of the fun. And those little quirks like the scientific inaccuracies and the budget shortcuts, they add to the film's charm.
They definitely make it memorable.
They do. And they give us a lot to talk about.
I agree. All right, so we're back and ready to dig deeper into the Black Scorpion.
Yeah, last time we were talking about how the filmmakers used, well, let's just say they had to be pretty creative with their budget.
They did. I mean, repurposing sound effects, maybe even using a model train for that scorpion attack. It's pretty impressive.
It is. But did all that penny pinching affect the film's quality?
That's a great question. I mean, we've all seen those B movies where the special effects are so bad they're good.
Right. So did the Black Scorpion fall into that trap?
Well, I think it's a bit more nuanced than that. While the budget limitations are definitely noticeable in some places, they also push the filmmakers to think outside the box.
Like with that black hole scorpion scene? It's kind of cheesy, but also kind of cool.
Definitely memorable. And despite the budget, the stop-motion animation still holds up surprisingly well.
Oh, absolutely. Willis O'Brien and his team, they were masters of their craft. You can tell they put their heart and soul into those scorpions.
They did. You can really feel the weight and power of those creatures. There's a real sense of dread that hangs over the film, like in that scene where the scorpion attacks the telephone repair crew.
Oh yeah, that scene is brutal. It really sets the tone for how dangerous those scorpions are.
It's a reminder that nature can be both beautiful and terrifying.
Exactly. And that theme, that clash between humanity and nature, it runs throughout the film.
Yeah, you've got the scientists trying to understand the scorpions, Arnie trying to control them, and then you have Teresa Alvarez, the rancher, who seems to represent a more, I don't know, harmonious relationship with nature.
It's a really interesting dynamic, and it's something that's still relevant today, as we grapple with climate change and all these environmental challenges. Those anxieties about our relationship with nature feel even more real.
Absolutely. So The Black Scorpion might be a B movie, but it touches on some pretty deep themes. But let's be honest, not everything about the film has aged gracefully.
Oh, you're talking about the scorpion puppet, aren't you?
I am. I mean, those droopy eyes, the constant drool, it's hard to take it seriously sometimes.
I know what you mean. It's definitely become a bit of a running joke among fans.
But I guess we have to remember the context. The filmmakers were doing their best with what they had.
Right, and they were trying to give the scorpion a face, some personality, even if the execution wasn't perfect.
Yeah, it's easy to judge these things from a modern perspective. But at the end of the day, The Black Scorpion is a product of its time.
And a pretty entertaining one at that.
Oh, absolutely. It's a flawed film, but it's ambitious and unique. And hey, we can't forget that it got a whole new life thanks to Mystery Science Theater 3000.
That's right. The riffing on the film introduced it to a whole new generation.
And that speaks to the film's enduring appeal. People keep coming back to it, whether for the stop motion, the unintentional humor, or just the nostalgia factor.
It's a film that people remember. It sticks with you.
It does.
Yeah.
Now, before we move on to the legacy of the Black Scorpion, anything else in the source material that jumped out at you?
Actually, yeah. Remember those scorpion sounds? The chirps and clicks?
You mean the ones they borrowed from them?
Well, it turns out those sounds weren't original to them either.
Wait, really? Where did they come from?
They actually originated in the 1953 film The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms.
No way. So those sounds were first used for a giant reptile, then for giant ants, and finally made their way to the Black Scorpion. That's wild!
It is. It shows how these filmmakers, especially in those B-movie days, they weren't afraid to borrow and adapt.
It's like a game of cinematic telephone, with those sound effects bouncing between different monster movies.
That's a great way to put it. And it wasn't just the sounds they repurposed. They also used some creature designs from Willis O'Brien's unused spider pit sequence for King Kong. You know, the giant worm and the
Oh,
spider.
right. It's like a little Easter egg for monster movie fans.
Exactly. And speaking of monster movie fans, why do you think the Black Scorpion still resonates with audiences after all these years?
Well, there's definitely a nostalgia factor, but I think it goes deeper than that.
I agree. There's something about the film's sincerity, the way it taps into those primal fears about nature. It's a story that's been told and retold for centuries.
And it still feels relevant today.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
The Black Scorpion reminds us that nature is powerful and we're not always in control. But it also shows us that we could overcome those challenges.
It's a classic good versus evil story.
And sometimes those are the most comforting stories,
Hmm.
especially in uncertain times.
I get that. And honestly, sometimes it's fun to just watch a good, cheesy B movie.
Oh, for sure. And the Black Scorpion has its fair share of cheesy moments.
It does. And those moments like the black hole scorpion or the drooling puppet, they become part of the film's charm.
They're what people talk about. They're what make it memorable.
And that's what makes a cult classic. It's not always about perfection. It's about connecting with audiences on a deeper level, creating those shared experiences.
Right. It's about building a community around a film.
And The Black Scorpion has definitely done that. It might not be a masterpiece, but it's a film that people love.
And it's found its way into pop culture, too. Mystery Science Theater 3000, other films and TV shows, it keeps popping up.
It's amazing how a film that was originally considered just a low-budget B-movie has become so iconic.
It really is. It proves that you don't need a huge budget or big stars to make a lasting impact. Sometimes all you need is a good story and a passionate team.
And maybe a few giant scorpions.
Of course.
And we're back for the final act of our Black Scorpion deep dive.
Ready to wrap things up.
I am. We've covered a lot of ground, from stop-motion scorpions to drooling puppets to budget constraints. But now I want to talk about legacy. Why is The Black Scorpion considered a cult classic? What keeps people coming back to it after all these years?
Well, nostalgia definitely plays a role. For a lot of viewers, The Black Scorpion represents this kind of like simpler time in filmmaking. When giant creatures were brought to life with practical effects and the thrills were, well, more earnest, I guess you could say.
Right, it has that classic monster movie charm. But I think there's something more to it than just nostalgia.
Oh, absolutely. The Black Scorpion taps into these like primal fears, these fascinations that we've had with giant creatures for like centuries. That idea of these creatures emerging from the earth, threatening our world. It's a powerful image.
And it's an image that feels especially relevant today. I mean, think about all the anxieties we have about climate change, natural disasters.
Exactly. It's like the Black Scorpion is this cautionary tale,
Yeah.
reminding us that nature is powerful and we're not always in control. But it also shows us that we can, like, overcome these challenges.
There's that element of hope, too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's hope, there's resilience. It's a classic good versus evil story. And sometimes those are the stories we need, especially when the world feels uncertain.
I've seen people call The Black Scorpion a comfort movie, like something they can always return to.
Yeah, I can see that. Those clear-cut narratives, the heroes, the monsters, the high stakes. It's comforting.
And let's be real, there's a certain joy that comes from watching a B movie, with all its flaws and quirks.
Oh, totally. Those imperfections, those moments where you're like, wait, what? Those become part of the fun.
Like the black hole scorpion or that grueling puppet. They're legendary.
Exactly. They're what makes the film memorable. They're what people talk about and share with others.
And that's what makes a cult classic, right? It's those shared experiences, that sense of community that builds around a film.
It's not about being perfect. It's about connecting with people on a deeper level.
And The Black Scorpion definitely connects with people. It might not be a masterpiece, but it's a film that people genuinely love.
And it's had this, like, lasting impact on pop culture, too.
Mm-hmm.
Think about Mystery Science Theater 3000, all the references in other films and shows. It keeps popping up.
It's amazing how a film that was initially dismissed as just another B movie has become so iconic.
It is. It shows that you don't need a massive budget or huge stars to make a film that matters. Sometimes all you need is a good story, a passionate team.
And of course, a few giant scorpions.
Of course. Always helps to have some giant scorpions.
Well, I think we've just about exhausted our deep dive into The Black Scorpion.
Yeah, we've covered it all, I think.
We've talked about the film's origins, its successes, its flaws, and its lasting impact. Hopefully we've given our listeners a new appreciation for this cult classic.
Maybe even inspire them to check it out for themselves.
Exactly. And if you're looking for more, Well, there's a whole world of 1950s monster movies out there waiting to be discovered.
Or maybe you're interested in the art of stop-motion animation, the work of pioneers like Willis O'Brien.
There are so many avenues to explore, so keep digging, keep questioning, and keep that love for film alive.
Well said.
And until next time, happy viewing.